there'd be 1,000 blossoms bloom.
No forced redundancies.
Sit down, Wilfred. You sit down.
Well, welcome everyone to our brand new podcast called Unpacked. I'm Queensland Labor Leader Stephen Miles, and this is
Corinne Mulholland, Labor Senator for Queensland.
Senator or Senator-elect?
Senator-elect for Queensland.
Congratulations, Corinne.
Thank you very much. What a time to be alive.
Must be pretty special to have been part of that big Labor election win.
Historic, amazing, still sinking in.
And our guest today is in the same boat.
Absolutely. And we
Ailey
have
France.
the Dragon Slayer herself.
Pretty incredible. So all of our guests, we're going to ask them to bring in their favourite sandwich and we'll unpack it. We'll share the sandwich and we'll have a bit of a chat.
Why the sandwiches?
Well, who
You're a
doesn't
little
love...
obsessed with sandwiches in a good way.
I am a bit obsessed with sandwiches. Who doesn't love a good sandwich? And I think the idea of sharing a sandwich... Well, actually, the idea of this came from Kevin Rudd.
Okay.
Former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, now US Ambassador. He, a few years ago now, he asked me to come see him at Eagle Street and he said, I'll make you a sandwich. I thought, okay, get to share a sandwich with Kevin Rudd, and I get there and we're sitting on his balcony and he's sharing some advice, mostly fashion advice for me.
Did you take any of it?
You'll know I'll need. And he will often let me know that I haven't complied with various pieces of fashion advice. But he had indeed made sandwiches. We're about halfway through and he said, I got these from 7-Eleven.
Stop it.
Picked them up from 7-Eleven and I'm still picturing Kevin at the 7-Eleven picking out sandwiches for our chat.
Kevin 7-Eleven, love it.
But I thought, what a great way to get to know our guests. Sit down and have a sandwich. All right, so Ailey France, I guess lots of people listening they'll know that Ailey beat Peter Dutton. They might know that she ran against him 3 times before she finally beat him. She might know she's a passionate disability advocate too, after that awful accident.
Terrible accident.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
And they might also know a bit of the tragic story of her
son, Henry. Absolutely. Yeah. She's an amazing woman, and hopefully today we get to go a little bit further into her story and find out what motivated her to run for politics, picking herself up and dusting herself off 3 times to run. That's no easy feat, hey?
Huge. Shall we get Ailey in?
Bring her in.
Hey, Ailey.
What have you brought us?
I've got a beautiful sandwich for you guys.
All right, well, come sit down and we'll have a look. We'll unpack it.
You're going to love this sandwich. I love this sandwich.
Grab your mic.
Anticipation's killing me.
Okay, this is the first sandwich ever on the Unpacked podcast, so no pressure.
Gosh, this is, I'm very grateful that I'm the first.
We're grateful.
And this will be interesting because there's a story to this sandwich in which this sandwich was forced upon me for about 10 years of my life.
Force-fed this sandwich.
Yes. I was force-fed this sandwich to the point that I could not eat ham for about 15 years. My parents split when I was about 6 and my dad would take us on holidays, and because it was just dad and 3 kids, and back in that day, the dads weren't great at cooking. So dad would buy just a whole leg of ham, 2 loaves of bread, pickle and butter, and we would have it for breakfast, lunch and dinner. I could not touch, look, smell ham for about 15 years. And then I had kids and suddenly the ham, I decided to reintroduce it into my life. And now it's a real nostalgia thing. I've come full circle.
There you go. Every sandwich has a story.
Absolutely. I'm a bit like that with curried sausages. They make me think of growing up.
Yeah.
Well, take it out of the bag. Let's see this sandwich. Okay, brown bread.
Okay. So is that the
lots
type
of pickles?
Is that the type of bread that you have at home? Are you a wholemeal kind of a gal?
No. We're kind of white bread people.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Simpler times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, ham off the bone, lots of butter.
Yeah, lots of butter. No mayo.
No mayo, just the pickle. The basics.
And you've brought some extra pickles for us
You
too.
have.
Yeah, of course.
Some snacks.
You go, you two. Hungry?
I like a pickle, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Always. I thought you'd never ask. Right. Well, there you go.
Let's see what the moats
the
pick
crunch.
up when you are.
So the crunch factor.
Should I have a bite of this?
Do it.
That's really good.
Now, I'm going to say they didn't want us to eat the sandwich till after, but you're into it.
We're breaking the rules. Living by our own
We'll
rules.
just let you finish that mouthful and then we'll start asking you questions.
Pretty good.
Sorry about that.
No.
Okay, well, we've introduced your sandwich. We've heard the story of your sandwich. It's a great story. And our first segment we call Bread and Butter. That's where we talk a bit about you.
Okay.
Okay, so I think everyone in Australia has heard of you now, Ailey, these last few weeks. But what's the 30-second version of Ailey France? What would you say? How would you describe yourself?
Walking through mud, finally getting to the finishing line. Just happy to have been given the opportunity to walk through the mud. I guess I'm just your regular kind of person who wants to make a big difference in people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That mud was 3 election campaigns, and it was picking yourself up, dusting yourself off after 2019, after 2022, and then agreeing to do it again. That is, it's crazy, it's brave, and there's probably a lot of self-doubt floating around in your head. Talk us through the decision to recontest in 2025.
I think it was a discussion really between me and my son. So that probably drove me towards wanting to run again. But I always knew it would take 2 or 3 times to beat Peter Dutton. I never, if I was going to beat him, it wasn't going to be the first time. It probably wouldn't be the second time. I think he had such a high profile, such a lot of money behind him, 20 years in the electorate.
Just a few billboards.
Yeah.
A smattering of billboards.
Yeah, and it was just a huge hurdle to jump over. And it just, I think like with anything, it takes, it takes a long time to achieve some goals. Like it was a long-term goal more than a short-term goal. So I always thought that I guess when my son became sick, it was when I reconsidered. It was probably when I thought to myself I wouldn't be doing it. And that was okay. Of course, everybody wants to be looking after their kids. So that wasn't a hard choice for me. But when he passed, and it was one of the things that he really, really was passionate about and wanted me to do. So yeah, it wasn't a hard decision, and it made me feel good because I was doing something that he really wanted me to do. I felt like I was living, some of the things that he was looking forward to. I think as a parent who's lost a child, you grasp hold of those things. I think you really grasp hold of those conversations and those things that you've chatted to each other about, and you want to, it's hard. It's wanting to keep those memories alive, but also keep that connection between him and I alive. And that's this election, I really felt that. So yeah.
He said to you, you're going to win this time.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, he did. He was convinced, and I think most people weren't convinced. I think people thought that we'd come close, but he was convinced. He always said to me, "Mum, you've worked so hard for this. This is going to be your time." And he was so wanting to be involved in it, and in many ways he was. I think about him every single day. I still do. I talk about him every single day. And miss that he hasn't been here for this big celebration,
What was his favourite part of campaigning? I've seen him in the past involved in campaigning with you, in your T-shirt, out there. What was the thing that he loved doing with you?
He probably loved just coming to the campaign events and going to the pub. And
the parties.
Yeah, the parties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loves a good party.
He was a teenager, but he also loved just being, part of a group of people that were working towards a goal. He was a real, he loved every single sport as well. So he was really into just the sport of politics, I think, in a way. You know, there's that connection there. It was interesting this week. We saw Big Ange win for Tottenham, and I'm a Big Ange supporter. And we would always, Henry, me, and Zach, always banter about. Henry was a Chelsea supporter.
Oh, controversy.
Zach's an Arsenal supporter.
Right.
And I just go where Big Ange is because he's Australian. So we had, when Big Ange took over Tottenham, you know, it was going quite well. And we had this banter all the time. So when they, when he won the European, that trophy this week, you know, I had some banter with Zach, but you know, that's one of the things I really miss. But the sport of politics is, you know, choosing a goal, working towards something. That was really what he was about as well.
So let's go back a bit then, because you talk about the mud, and the thing that keeps you going through the mud is what you want to achieve. So just tell people why politics? Why did
So my family was involved in politics when I was younger. So I've always been around politics. So that's never been a mystery to me as such.
And this is a great story too, because your dad ran 4 times before he got elected?
4 times, Dad.
Kept at it.
And
then how
I'm
many
so
times did he win?
happy. Sorry?
Then how many times did he win?
Then he was a state member another 4 times. So he was in for 12 years.
Yeah.
My dad is just he was in front of me as a lesson in perseverance in politics. Southport was where he grew up. My grandparents built their little tiny house there, which used to be known as the Labor House because it was probably the only one on the Gold Coast. It was the centre for all things Labor, that house. And, you know, so I grew up around politics. I helped Dad with his first 3 campaigns. I was working in Hong Kong for the 4th campaign, but I came home for the win for a couple of weeks. So I've been around politics a lot, but I never thought that I would be a politician myself. I went down a different route. I went down the journalism route. And so I, you know, went to uni, got a cadetship at a newspaper, worked in Hong Kong, worked in London, came back home after having kids. And it wasn't until after I lost my leg that I decided to get involved in politics. And the decision around that really was, I was just struck by how much needed to be done in the disability space. So it really hit me hard, the change. And I think I really was quite naive to the challenges that people with a disability face in terms of getting back to work, but just getting around the community. I started writing articles and things about disabled parking, and that was one of my first little campaigns. Went on the radio, talked about disabled parking and all the dramas I'd had with people parking in disabled bays without a permit. And eventually I put my hand up for Dixon. And part of that was showing people within the party and outside the party that a person with a disability could get pre-selected. And most people, I think, you know, in our movement would know that back then Dixon was not considered a winnable seat at all. It wasn't considered a winnable seat until Peter Dutton left the seat. But I thought to myself, well, I think this is just going to be my chance, and I'm just going to go for it anyway. I don't care whether people think it's winnable or not. I'm just going to put everything into it and pretend it is a winnable seat and, see how I go. And that was the start of the journey.
Yeah, wow. And one of those campaigns, Peter Dutton really tried to use your disability against you, didn't he?
Yes. So when I was pre-selected, I lived just outside the electorate in a house that we built for my wheelchair and for my disability. and it was perfect for me, the house. But when I decided to run for Dixon, I did look around for somewhere that I might be able to move to, and it would come as no surprise to anyone that, it's very, very difficult to get a disability-friendly housing. So that was the big thing that, I hadn't moved. He used that, I guess, in the first election campaign, basically telling people that I wasn't in the electorate.
It's a bit rich for him.
Yeah. I wasn't in the electorate. That I was using my disability as an excuse. And anybody with a disability will just tell you that disability is just a reality of life. Like I'm in a wheelchair. I have one leg. Bathrooms need to be modified for me.
Oh, absolutely. Dangerous space, right?
Yeah. So getting a house with a modified bathroom is very difficult. Eventually, I've been in my new house now 5 years, but I had to buy that house, modify the bathroom, modify all the floors, and, it's a huge barrier. It was a huge barrier for me, really, in the beginning. But I think, I've now been in the electorate 5 years and it's been great.
Having tried to follow you around door knocking on a few days of this campaign, you were not using your disability as an excuse. you were a dynamo on the campaign.
Yeah.
And I pretty sure I've been with you election night on all 3 elections, including the one we had at the Warner Tavern, where we really thought we could have done it that time and it was awful. And then a few weeks ago at the Kalanga Tavern, when it just really early started to look good and then better and then really, really good. Talk us through how it felt on the night. And we've touched on your dad a bit, but he was the happiest, proudest person in that room, and there were a lot of happy people.
There was.
Yeah. It was, oh gosh. Honestly, it was, it's hard to describe that night because as a candidate, you're kind of working so hard towards that day, and then you really don't think about what happens beyond it in a way. Well, that's how I kind of get to that day. I just have to get to that day, and you work as hard as you can day and night, like until that day. So I hadn't really thought much about what happened after, but I think for me, looking around that room and seeing people who had campaigned in Dixon for more than 20 years, the commitment of those people, being able to see their faces light up at about 8 o'clock that night, and just see the pure joy in their faces of something that they had worked so hard and given so much of their weekends and spare time to, was just, it's so humbling. And so it was really emotional. It was emotional. I'm sure you must have felt it too, but I kind of like you come from the polling booth and you try to have a shower and clean yourself up a bit, but the first thing you want to do is have a beer. Like you just like, and then everyone around you is saying, don't drink too much, don't drink too much. You might actually win this. You might actually win this. And you're just thinking to yourself,
get out of my way. I want to have a beer.
I have not had a drink for about 6 weeks and I've been standing up on a polling booth all day.
I'm at a bowls club.
It would be rude not to.
Yes. Just give me a beer and chips. This is what I need. So you have your beer and chips and you're starting to exhale because you've had this build-up of months and months and months of campaigning. And for me, 7 years. You're looking around a room of all these people who have been campaigning with you for 7 years. And everyone's exhaling. Okay, we've done all we can. Now we just have to sit and wait. And we think that we're going to wait like till the next day, that they'll be counting.
Yeah.
And then suddenly on the television, it crops up that we might actually win this. And I said to somebody about 8 o'clock, because I'm talking to people and jabbering on and having my beer and doing whatever. And I said to somebody, I was looking around and I was like, we might actually win this. And I'm hearing things. And somebody said to me, one of the volunteers goes, we actually have won this. We won this, Ailey. Catch up.
It hadn't sunk in. It hadn't sunk in.
No, I think I was taking in all the atmosphere of everyone around me and the excitement, and it hadn't sunk in. And then I was, quickly went to the tally room to find out what I needed to do for when, whether I made a speech or, you go to the tally room and just find out what's going on with all the preferences and where the count's at and whatever. I went in there and I was like, are we actually winning this? And I was you might have been in there.
I was there.
And
Cheers
and a few other.
And Natasha from your campaign.
Yeah, the campaign managers were in there. And I said to everyone, are we actually winning this? And they were like, yes, we are.
We really wanted to get those first pre-polls in. We wanted to make sure pre-poll wasn't going to be any different. But and then around then, I texted the Prime Minister and said, congratulations. And he replied with, can you get Ailey to ring me? And so you rang the Prime Minister. I've filmed that.
Congratulations to you. Congratulations to you.
What did Albo say to you?
He basically said, well done, mate. You've done an awesome job. You've been doing this you've been a candidate twice and then 3 times, and he was so genuine in his congratulations. It was just so lovely. It was lovely. It was really good. It was kind of I think I was still in a bit of shock at that stage.
Yeah.
And it was, I was congratulating him too. Like, it was a massive win for him and the team. It was such an amazing moment, and a moment I never thought, I'd have in my life. It's one of those extraordinary moments that you just think, is this happening to me? And it did.
And then you're in Canberra attending your first caucus meeting.
I know.
Driving up to Parliament House.
I know.
What did that feel like?
Days later.
Yeah, it was, I was kind of, when you're tired, excited, it's kind of like your body's sort of like wanting to jump up and down, but it can't. It's just going, no, I can't move. Like, I know you want to jump up and down, but it just wouldn't move for me. So no, it was very exciting. And it's kind of you're surrounded by all these giants of politics, right? Like, and you walk into the caucus room and all of your idols and all of the people you've admired for such a long time, and you're suddenly...
They all want selfies with you.
Yeah.
No, I was
You're one of those giants now.
Yeah. You're kind of a big deal.
Yeah. I don't feel I literally went into that room and just said, holy cow, I'm in this space. And I never expected to be in this space, but I'm so grateful. And I have to keep reminding myself, like, constantly to take in every little moment of this experience, because it's such a unique, amazing experience. Really grateful.
Can we just touch on you attending Parliament House, because you are one of the first members of the House to have a really significant disability, and it's a big place. Like, Parliament House is huge, and there's a lot of walking.
Yeah.
And talk us through what that's like, because there's a lot of thick carpet around the place. There's big, heavy doors, the things that you don't necessarily think about when you're an able-bodied person getting through this space and moving around this space. Tell us what that was like.
Well, I bought my wheelchair to Canberra, obviously, because I can walk pretty well, but I can't walk long distances. So Parliament House is like that place where it's hard. So I bought my wheelchair, and I needed it for travel anyway, but it's not a motorised wheelchair. And the first thing I found is that I can't use it on the carpet. That is a serious workout, actually. It'd challenge you, Stephen, in some of those, because my back muscles and my upper muscles after going on the carpet I was sore,
fatigued,
really sore.
And see, this is extraordinary. Like, this is a new building, right?
Yes.
A new parliament. It should be disability compliant. It's, I mean, the old house would have been terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, and then you have to take a different entrance because I have to take a different entrance. I went through the ministerial entrance because the other entrance has got a few stairs
That's
coming
not
up,
so bad.
which is fine.
You can get used to
You
it.
know,
Yeah.
We make do.
It's fine. So that's one thing. I need to get a motorised wheelchair. But in the meantime, it was really interesting. Penny Wong rang me and said, by the way,
Oh, just Penny Wong. Yeah. Name dropping.
Should be here.
she basically saying you can hire motorised scooters there. They have a couple of them there that you can hire. And that might be the best option to start off with. So I got one of those things, and so I was zipping around on that. But yeah, it's a logistics thing.
It is.
But my life is a logistics thing. And you could get quite used to, as a disabled person, finding ways to work around or finding ways to make it work or, saying up front, I can't do this or I can do that, and how can we make it work? So I think it's not a problem, but I will just find my way to make it work. And obviously for a division, I won't be able to run down any stairs or, they're going to have to think about where they place me in the house, in my office, or where,
Yep.
Over the last, I think anybody with a disability would say that we're, incredibly resilient in that sense. You just figure it out and you'll work it out as you go along. So,
But it's that I think it's that perspective that you're going to bring to the parliament that is a missing perspective, and particularly in the House. I know that we've got Jordan in the Senate, but your perspective in the House, I think, is going to be incredible. You would know the stats better than I do. Was it 1 in 6 Australians or thereabouts are living with a disability? So that perspective around the types of buildings that we're designing, our communities, what they look like, our facilities, our healthcare, all of that perspective I think is missing, and you're going to bring that perspective, and that's, I think, a huge boon for the Australian community, given the number of people living with a disability.
Yeah, I look forward to I think every MP, every person's life is unique, and everyone brings their own life perspective, and that will be mine. Mine will be a little bit different to everybody else's, but I just look forward to contributing in that way. I think there's a lot of people in Dixon who have exactly the same issues as me, whether it's the NDIS or who have been through our health system. People who have been through the chronic illness struggle or the disability journey don't often find themselves at the table in these spaces.
No.
They don't, So, I'm really grateful for it, and I do see that this is it's a great opportunity for our community to, have more of a voice, and that's really important.
That's incredible perspective that you bring. I think everyone's got a better sense of you now, Ailey, from that chat. It was really lovely. But we do have another segment. Our next segment, which we call Cut the Crust, where we want to hear your opinion about some topical issues. And I think the first one is still what everyone is talking about and wondering about, this big Labor election win that you've been a part of. Of course, you have too, Corinne. Just historic result. Everyone's trying to understand it, unpack it, explain it. What's your theory? What do you think happened?
I think the other side lost touch with the everyday Australian. In summary, just lost touch. No more so than Dixon. I think, me door knocking, talking to people, I door knocked my little heart out.
You did.
It gave me a very good idea of what people in my electorate were concerned about, and by far and away it was cost of living.
Yep.
And I think that we listened, and a lot of our plan going into the election was directed, or most of the plan was directed at cost of living relief and helping people out with their bills. And that came through lots of MPs, candidates listening on the doors over a long period of time, like over the last 3 years, really. In the meantime, the way I see them losing touch is, going to an election with a promise to raise taxes, going to an election with a promise and then a promise to abolish work from home, and then having a kind of a turnaround on that, and going to an election with this big nuclear bill. It didn't really make sense. I don't think so. I think that was the big thing. I think they'd completely lost touch with what the average Australian needed and wanted right across Australia.
I reckon we can also pinpoint it to a specific moment around Tropical Cyclone Alfred where the community was going through a really unfamiliar time. We weren't sure what the cyclone was going to bring, and there you were out, the two of you, traveling around to neighbourhood centres, on the at sandbagging stations. You were there for your community, and their local member was not. And I think that was a bit of a turning moment, I felt, when I was talking to people at sandbagging stations out my way, where, our members of parliament were MIA. Did you pick that up where you were?
Absolutely. But I also think it fed into the idea that so many people would come up to me and say to me, I haven't seen Peter Dutton in years. Years. So absolutely that definitely that had an impact on a lot of people, and our response in terms of dropping off water, dropping off 6 days without electricity in some of our areas, dropping off groceries to more elderly people.
You ran a pizza truck, didn't you?
Yeah, I ran a pizza truck for everyone, and
Pizza.
and a free ice cream van for all the kids.
Stop it.
So yeah, that was a hit. Like the whole community was in darkness, and then there was this pizza van and this ice cream truck, and everyone came down through the streets to come and and it was so nice to do that for them. Like it was, if you have kids, like 6 nights without any electricity, but it also fed into that, I think, as well, not understanding, losing touch with the community. Like people were saying, 1, that they hadn't seen Peter Dutton in years. 2, he wasn't talking about in the election the things that they were concerned about. And 3, he wasn't there during that cyclone. So all of these things added up to you're not here for us.
Yeah, just because you're from Queensland doesn't mean you're for Queensland. I think that was so much on display.
Yeah.
During your campaign.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I loved about this campaign was how Labor really used Medicare as a cost of living initiative. And for people who are sick, the cost of healthcare is the big cost of living thing. But Medicare is so central to the Labor brand. It's something we care so deeply about. How did you see that commitment to get back to free healthcare, back to bulk billing, the urgent care clinics, all of that?
I love talking about this because it is what I am all about. And I think it's what the Labor Party is all about. It's our heart and soul. So the idea that we were going to do this record investment to make sure to bring it back to what it's supposed to be after 9 years of the coalition just trashing it, really. It was, I was proud. I was proud to be talking on the doors and every door saying, we're going to bring Medicare back to what it used to be. And now we've got to deliver that. That's what I'm excited about. I think, plus the urgent care clinics, the cheaper medicines is a huge thing for people. Anyone with chronic illnesses, that's huge. To bring that down to the price that we have, I think is huge. And so many people appreciate that. I think we really focused in on the things that really matter to people, and that cost of healthcare stuff is great. And I was so pleased to be door knocking on that because it's part of why I got involved in politics. It is my whole reason for being here.
Yep. And so you're both part of this big crop of women, younger women, going down to Canberra. The big difference between Labor and the Conservative parties is the sheer volume of women we've got now. We've got in our ranks. What's it like having so many other inspiring women around you?
It's so fantastic. Gosh, it's like having a whole lot of sisters. Just I'm so grateful, so grateful. It's extraordinary, and I think it's nice to be able to have a whole group of women going through the same thing at the same time. I think a lot of the stuff that we have campaigned on, has been women specific. The women's health package.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff around wages and increasing women's wages, particularly in those lower paid areas. It's good to be able to have our sisters all around us. It's good.
It is. And when I was, going through this campaign, I have a little baby. So he's about 6 months old now, but he was really little when we started this campaign. And it drove home to me every time I was talking to women in the community how much there's this juggle going on out there for working mums, working families, trying to make ends meet, trying to do the childcare, school drop-off, the real juggle, and wanting people that understand that struggle. And I think, I kind of say that, I'm a mum from the outer burbs, and there's going to be a whole lot of mum energy coming to Canberra. And Canberra needs a few more mums, I think, and they're going to get a stack of mums coming in from Queensland. And I think we saw a lot of mums tell Peter Dutton off at this election because they just weren't getting it. They weren't getting the struggle. They weren't getting the issues. You've got, the women's health package, but 3 days guarantee at childcare. That is massive for working families. And you've got women out there in our community at the moment who are making the decision about whether they can afford to go back to work or not, and or dropping down their days and trying to make that all work. And this idea that a whole crop of young mums and women are going into the parliament who get the struggle, who want to make their lives easier. They're seen, they're heard, and they're going to be delivered for. And I think that's a huge seminal moment with this class of 2025 going into the parliament.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's really impressive.
I'll ask about kind of the arc of the last few years, and for a lot of the months after the Voice referendum, I think the Conservative parties really thought they were on an ascendancy. A lot of people thought Labor couldn't win, and I think we saw them try to revisit that politics with the condemnation of welcome to country type acknowledgement of country ceremonies. Do you think they fundamentally misread the results of that referendum, and that informed a really poor strategy? Is that part of what went on?
Yeah, I do. I do think they got a false sense of that because people made that decision in the referendum, that they also agreed with everything else that they were doing, or that they thought of, or that they I do think they had an absolute false sense of the issues in the community. And I think that false sense of security, they didn't bother talking to the electorate about what they were really voting on.
Yeah.
That's my view.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And referendum and referenda have a really poor history of getting up in Australia. So I think there's
once there wasn't bipartisan support.
Yeah, it was dead on arrival. I think that was the challenge. But
they interpreted that as all Australians are racist and we can win an election on race issues.
yeah, and I think there was people looking abroad, going, do we want these global forces that are lurching to the right and are unpredictable and not stable. And I think people really looked at that as well and thought, yeah, no, not for us. So I think, yeah, it was a complete misread. Complete misread.
Yeah, I think it was a complete misread. I just think they just didn't bother, interrogating the electorates that they needed to, not the ones they needed to win, but also maintain. They're obviously really disconnected in their own electorates. That's what I saw here in Dixon.
Yeah.
Completely disconnected with the issues on the ground. And I think it's that echo chamber. Like, they are not seeking the views and opinions of people outside their circles.
Yep.
And that's so incredibly important for politicians. For me, it's not just talking to the people who you agree with, it's talking to people who you don't agree with, but also, all the people in between who just don't have the time to talk to you at all.
Yeah.
It's how do you find them and talk to them about their issues? And I think that they just failed to do that.
Well, that's you out there knocking on their doors.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, it is. It is. And that's like making those phone calls, knocking on doors, seeing people at street stalls and things like that. Most people don't have time to make a connection with a politician. They're not going to go out of their way to do that. The people who do that are either in your circle, really, or they're outside. They're politically aware as such.
Yeah.
I think you've got to make an effort to connect with people who don't have time for this stuff. So I don't think they did that in their own electorates, and they lost a whole heap of them.
One of the ways the Prime Minister tried to reach people who might not be engaged like that is through online and influencers and podcasts and that sort of thing. What role do you think that played in the election outcome?
I think it plays a big role. It's a recognition that people are no longer being informed about what's going on in their community by mainstream media or even flyers and things into letterboxes.
Yeah.
And I think lots of people, they are listening to podcasters. They are, seeking out different ways to be informed about what's going on around them. And, I think that's a smart move.
Yeah.
And they didn't like those young female podcasters and influencers coming down to the budget lockup. They didn't like that at all. They took a real dim view of that.
I thought that was great.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was, I think, making politics more interesting, opening up a little bit.
Yeah.
But certainly the Conservative side of politics hated it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I've been to a budget lockup and as a journalist, and I think the podcast
Stay awake.
Honestly, I think the podcasters would have walked away and gone, we won't be back.
We've been missing nothing all these years.
That's exactly right.
We wanted to be in the room where it happens, and the room
where it happens is very stressful, and you are basically regurgitating press releases because there's no way known that you can go through all those budget papers in that time. Like you get handed a pile this big, just dumped on your desk, and you're like, but there's a press release in between each one, and you think to yourself, I'll find that bit in that just to check it up. But, really, I'm sure the podcasters, they will find interesting people to interview while they're there, but, yeah.
Well, you've taken us all the way back to the start of your career, Ailey. So I had one last question on that because so you started out as a journalist at the Courier Mail,
Yes.
a publication maybe not everyone listening or watching this podcast loves. What insight do you think you got from that time being a News Limited journalist that helped you in the effort to win this campaign?
The newspaper was a very different newspaper back then. That's the first thing I'll say. When I went there, it was a broadsheet. It's now a tabloid newspaper. So it was a very, very different place. And we didn't even have access to the internet back then. So now I'm revealing how old I am. And I didn't have a mobile phone. I had the yellow pages too. So
Not even one of those car phones? Those really cool car phones?
No, none of that. You went through the yellow pages.
So you dialed in stories from payphones, that kind of thing?
I did do that.
Wow.
Yes, to copy takers.
So for everyone listening, a payphone was a telephone in a box on the street that you could
Yes.
use
Yes.
coins to. Coins are a form of money that predates Visa cards.
Or you could do a collect call, which means that the person on the other side agrees to pay for it. And I would have my notebook
And they were really
there.
expensive.
Yeah.
I used to do that to my mum when I was at school and I wanted to get picked up. I'd do a 1-800 reverse call.
There you go.
That's clever. Yeah, so it was a very different place. But what I will say is I started in news and in police rounds. And back then you used to rotate around quite a bit to different areas of the newspaper. I really, really enjoyed talking to real people about their struggles, injustice. And I've always had that real urge to want to fix injustice. And so I always leaned to the stories where there was some sort of injustice that by putting it in the paper, I could in some way encourage change. So I think my newspaper experience, it also gave me, I ended up in the Bureau in Townsville. So I travelled all across Queensland,
Yeah, wow.
met so many great characters and, farmers, but also people working in the mining sector. Like, I met so many people, and what it taught me is that, now everybody deserves to be listened to, and there's humanity and common ground in everybody. Like, it's interesting, I think now politics has become really polarized, but I still, from those days in journalism, I think that there's always common ground to be found and also good ideas to be found, even if it's from somebody you wouldn't normally agree with. And I think we have to remind ourselves of that all the time as politicians, that listening is just the most important part of the job.
Yep.
And finding that common ground, making sure you try to find that common ground. So I think meeting all those people across Queensland back then, it was an incredible opportunity, and it gave me so much perspective on life and how different people from different backgrounds lived. It was great.
Well, the last thing we were going to do is throw a couple of quotes at you, see if you can guess who said it, and then what you think of it. And I might get Corinne to do the first one.
Right.
This is a cracker.
The split was based on principle.
Or was it David Littleproud this week?
It was. Now, as we're filming this podcast, the Nationals and Liberals have officially broken up, but they're talking about getting back
Gone
together.
full maths.
So
Full maths.
who knows where they'll be by the time we release this? But what do you think of the coalition breakdown?
It's been explosive. Like, it's one of those nice episodes where people are shouting and screaming at each other, and you just think, where's this going to go? Like, are they going to start throwing stuff and, break the lamp? Or, it happened so quickly too, and it was very, very explosive. I think little thought into the future consequences. So that's why I say explosive. When you see mace is such a good analogy. You see a couple explode, break up, but they haven't thought about that the entire nation is watching this. That's a bit like how it is there.
Feels like a toxic relationship, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
On again, off again. Are they good for each other? Are they bad for each other?
I kind of think they just haven't thought through. Like they need
let's
someone
hope
needed
they
to take
don't.
a breath. Somebody needed to take a breath and just go, okay, let's just calm down a bit and then step away and
Bit of time away from each other, a bit of eat, pray, love.
maybe.
Soul searching.
Okay, next quote, Corinne.
The next quote is, "The chicken ain't squawking."
Who does that sound like? I don't know that one.
That was Jim Chalmers celebrating Labor's election victory. So I like that one too.
Yeah.
But we've talked a lot about that, and we're going to have some of the other new Labor MPs on as well. So there'll be plenty more chances to talk about the election. But for our first guest, Ailey France, you were fantastic. Thank
What a
you so
cracker.
much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Now do I get to
Now
eat
you
my
can tuck in.
sandwich?
Get into it.
Get stuck
Thank
into
you
it.
so much. My gosh. This is a trip down memory lane.
That's a lot of pickle.
Yeah.
Heavy on the pickle.
Well, thanks for coming on Unpacked, Ailey France. We really enjoyed having you.
So great to be here. Thank you both for having me here.
You're a great guest. Thank you.
Before I leave, I got a gift for you guys.
Oh, wow.
I should have bought 2 of them, but there you go.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that will have to go on the desk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Proud of place.
Unpacked podcast. Proud Queenslanders. Thank you, Ailey. So good to see you.
See ya. See you.
Well, that was a really fun chat, Corinne.
This is fantastic. She is going to be amazing, an amazing federal member for Dixon.
So many of the stories about Ailey really, they talk about the tragedy and the accident and everything, but it was just really nice to get into a bit more about what it was like growing up with a dad and what kept her going through those elections.
And who knew she was so mad about pickles?
That is a substantial amount of pickles.
It is. It is. We learn something new every time on this podcast.
That's right. See, sandwiches. If you're listening and you have follow-up questions or someone you think we should get on as a guest or an idea for us, please do get in touch.
That'd be great. Drop us a comment as well. We'd love to know.
Thanks so much for joining us on Unpacked.
We'll see you next time.
Not now, not ever.
Don't give me 1,000 blossoms bloom.
No forced redundancies.
Just sit down, Wolfie. Just sit down.